Hey, what did you know? This is episode 80, 80, which means I've been live for 80 days in a row. And that's pretty awesome because I think throughout this whole period, I learned a great deal. And I've also managed to find a better way to kind of do this whole setup itself. And as you probably know, I am in the process of building my mobile live stream setup itself, and this is going to be pretty kick-ass. So I'm totally stoked about that, and it's something that I would love to share with you. And that's coming up in the next couple of weeks because some of the parts are actually custom, so it's going to take a little bit of time to get it sorted out. And many of them are actually shipping from overseas, so it's going to take a bit of time. But over the next couple of days, some of the items are coming in drips and drabs, so I could also take this opportunity to kind of show you how it is and how I put the whole thing together. Yeah. So today's topic is it's a question that my friend asked me. Um, So last night, what happened was that as I was going to bed and I was going through my Twitter feed, one of the news that stood out was the fact that Apple has decided to ban Fortnite, the game by Epic Games, from the App Store itself, and primarily because they have decided to skirt the way that Apple is going to take 30% of their cut from putting their app in the App Store. And if you have not heard, following that, what happened was that Google actually did the same by banning the store or removing the app from the store itself. And so that has also created another set of lawsuit against Google. And I guess what was really interesting was that there were two sides of a group of people who kind of think that Apple's way of dealing with the 30% is something that has been seen as not acceptable. To a certain extent, I think that's what most people are not happy with. And the other aspect of it is that some people are saying that well, Epic Games when they started the whole journey with Apple, they knew what they're in for. In other words, there wasn't a bait and switch game. It was something that was made known to them right at the start. Right? It was if you're gonna join our ecosystem, if you're gonna be part of the ad ecosystem itself, then these are the rules that you have to play by. There was never a come and join, and once you start getting people to pay you, Apple steps up and asks for money. So so that is the premise of it. Now, to answer the question of whether Apple is being a bully in this situation, I think that kind of calls for a deeper understanding and a deeper analysis of what happened here. Now, in case you didn't know, there was a huge, well, huge, but there was a sizable number of other companies that pointed out that Apple was giving them the way out. For example, if you have if you have an iPhone and you have the Kindle app, you actually could not buy your books on the Kindle app itself. Now, you can buy it on Amazon's website, and then the book will appear in the library of your Kindle app. So, in other words, you do not purchase the book directly from your Kindle app. In other words, you purchase it outside of the Kindle app. So it can be on a browser website, or it can be even on Safari on your iPhone itself. You can buy that, but you just cannot buy it from the app itself. And the reason why that is so is because by doing so, Apple doesn't have a share of Amazon's takings or revenue from the sale of the Kindle books, right? And so that's one example. The other example is that Netflix, right? Netflix actually requires you to sign up for a membership. You pay a membership, a monthly membership, and it's all you can watch. However, you cannot sign up for that via the app itself. So here you go. You have two companies that are given that access or given that possibility to work around that Apple ecosystem. Whereas when a company like Epic Games come into the picture, they get banned altogether. So I think the best way to think about or to look at whether Apple is being a bully in this situation, I think to put things into perspective and to put things into context, I would say the better question it's probably it's Apple abusing its monopolistic power, right? Because one could see that in the Apple ecosystem, if you want to use any apps on the Apple ecosystem, the iOS ecosystem itself, there is no other platform, there is no other ways to get your apps except through the App Store, right? Now, one would argue that the same is for the Google platform itself, the Android platform. And that is true. However, for the Android platform, it actually allows you to what they call side load an app onto your phone, and hence bypassing the Google ecosystem altogether. Now, so in that respect itself, does that make Apple a monopoly? Well, from my point of view, as long as Apple is not the sole provider of a mobile device, which means there are competing platforms, there are competing hardware makers, but not for the same operating system, as long as there are other options itself, it means that the company is not a monopoly, right? A company is a monopoly where, for example, it's like here in Singapore, if you want to get water, I mean, we all need water, right? We all need running water in the household. So the only place that you can get water is from Singapore Power or SP services. Now, there is no other people, unless, of course, you create your own water tank and you have your own water processing um, facilities. You have no other choices, right? You have no other choices except to get your water from Singapore Power, right? SP services. So about 2 years back, the same is in the utility, the electricity department. In other words, if anyone wants to get electricity at all, there is only one provider, and that provider, it's the only place that you can get electricity. Now that in itself is a monopoly, right? Which means you if you need to use that, and in our case here, of course, no household can can go without electricity and water, right? I mean, it's just unthinkable. Unless you are faced with there are no other options, then in that instance itself, the company is actually a monopoly. So in this case here, strictly speaking, Apple is not a monopoly, because if you want to buy a mobile device, if you want to buy a phone, there are more than one options for you to choose from, right? Arguably, you can choose only one or the other. It's like a dilemma, right? I mean, you can choose this or this. Of course, you can choose not to have a phone altogether, but that's another separate argument altogether. But if you need to get a phone, you have options. You go with either the iOS or the Android. Now, where things get a little bit more interesting is once you have made your choice, you are then presented with either a plethora of choices, or you're presented with only one choice. And so if you choose the Apple ecosystem, there are no other phones in the world that runs iOS other than the ones made by Apple. Whereas if you chose the Android system, you have the possibility of choosing any other hardware provider other than Google. And so in that respect itself, Android is indeed a what you would call a market that quite likely represents what we call a perfect competition market. In other words, in a perfect competition market is where you have many buyers and many sellers, and many buyers and many sellers, and the sellers and the buyers compete to set the pricing, right? And so, once you have decided on the Android system, you can basically go out there and you can say, should I go with the Pixel phone or should I go with the Google phone? I mean, Google is Pixel. Could I go with the Pixel? Should I go with the Samsung? Should I go with the OnePlus? All the other brands of the phone, right? You have a huge amount of choices, and of course, the choices there are pretty much laid out for you, and you literally have a whole range of choices to decide whether you want to get this or that. And so in that case itself, the hardware aspect of the market, it is very, very close to being a perfect competition because there's many sellers. But if you look at the hardware aspect of Apple devices, there is no other people who are manufacturing hardware that can run an Apple operating system, whether it's iOS, iPad OS, or Watch OS, or the Mac. And so in that case itself, that whole entire ecosystem can be seen as a pseudo monopoly. In other words, it's in and of itself, if you take it at the industrial level, it is not quite a monopoly, but within that sole ecosystem itself, you really do not have a choice because, perhaps for the Mac OS is a little bit more flexible compared to the iPad OS and the iOS, because in the iPad OS and iOS there is no other way. I mean, unless we're talking about test flight, but that's besides the point. But in order to get any app on your device itself, there's only one legit way to get it, and that is through the Apple ecosystem. And once again, we're not talking about jailbroken phone and all that stuff, right? We're talking about mainstream. We're talking about people who do not like to tingle with the thing. They just want to buy it and use it as is. And so, in that respect itself, if you are a Apple user, if you are iOS user, that pretty much put you leave you with no other choices, because if you want apps, that's the only place to go. And so, in that respect itself, I would argue that Apple is, in fact, a quasi um, monopoly. And so, in that instance itself, the question then is that will this company will this company abuse its power to extract as much profit from the consumer as much as the consumer can bear? And if you ask me honestly, I think Apple it's one in that in that realm of how they operate, because even for connectors, even for dongles, for example, you can buy third party dongles. Like for example, recently I just got the dongle for the iPhone, and it's a Lightning to HDMI cable. On Apple's website, on Apple's side, they're selling at $78. If you look up third party, you can get it for as cheap as $16. And and so, in fact, when I was looking at those options itself, I was pretty much tempted to go with the third party, because I mean, $16 and $78, that's a huge difference. Until when I read the reviews and I asked some of my friends who are, who use everything Apple, I asked them whether these third party dongles, do they work, or are they even worth the money? And quite frankly, many of them tell me that especially if you're using it for work, don't waste the time getting third party, because it's going to it's going to probably work for a while, and then after that it's not going to work, and all that stuff. And God knows what Apple does to that lightning connectors, and it makes it such that it doesn't work, or it doesn't work well. And so, in that respect itself, the question really is: it's Apple actually abusing its monopolistic position amongst the group of people who have chosen to use the product? And sadly, I would say the answer is yes, from a consumer perspective, because I am in a way forced to buy apps or to buy things that only work with their devices, and both hardware as well as software. And and so the thing here is that, of course, with Fortnite, with the issue with Fortnite itself, I think the bigger question is: would games like Fortnite and maybe even Nintendo, for example, would they be better off operating outside of the Apple ecosystem? Because it's the iPhone the best tool to use for games? I think that may be a very interesting question to look at, but it is definitely something that worth considering, right? And so I think from a company point of view, I mean, from Epic's point of view, yes, I think they're pissed, just like Hey is pissed because they do not allow their subscribers to sign up outside of the app, right? Hey.com, the new email service. And there was this big, hoo-ha on Twitter itself, right? But in the case of the consumer itself, what do you think? Do you think that Apple it's leveraging or is exploiting their position, their monopolistic position, to extract as much profit from the customer? What do you think? Share it with me. In the meantime, thank you for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye.